What's up guys, today we're going to be doing an upgrade guide for popular beginner budget IEM. So basically a upgrade path at each price to see which one fits the ideal sound signature of those beginning IEMs. Starting off with the very popular TANGZU WANER 2, here we're looking for something that's clean, balanced, smooth, non-fatiguing, kind of like a JM1 bass boosted kind of sound. And my rec going up to the next upgrade would be the KZ Zenith. It's got a smooth, clean, well layered playback. The staging is good and the driver is a decent upgrade over the WANER 2s as well, and you can find these on sale for around like less than $50. So overall, sound to performance pretty solid. Then after that, I would skip the $80 and $100 price bracket and go straight to the $150 mark. Here we're looking at something like the EPZ P50, the CRINACLE Daybreaks, or if you want something more technical, the Chopin, the Nova, the Super Mix 4. All of those are well balanced, clean, with the main difference being that the JM1 bass boost is gonna sound more smooth, more neutral, and then the Harman IEMs are gonna be a little more technical but also not as natural in the timbre. Then after those, I would jump right to the EPZ K9 and skip the $200 mark because the $200 is not a huge difference versus some of the $150 sets. The performance ratio isn't that great, whereas the K9 is basically an improvement on the tonality and a slight bump in the tech. It's pretty smooth but still dynamic enough. It's not going to be fatiguing, and overall well balanced, just like the sound that we're looking for. Then after the K9s, I would go for something like the Mega 5 EST7, something that has the meta tuning, very similar to the JM1 bass boost, but just more filled in the upper mids, more treble extension, smoother in the overall playback, a little bit better technicalities, and you get the ESTs as well with the Mega 5s. An honorable mention here would also be the Top Pros. This is not quite as smooth as the Mega 5 because it doesn't have ESTs and because the treble is a little bit more sparklier. But if you want something slightly more bright, slightly more dynamic, and just engaging in the treble playback, the Top Pros would be a great pick. Then lastly, at around $1,000, I would go for the Monarch Mark 4s, and I wouldn't spend any more for a all-rounder clean set. The Monarch Mark 4s are basically a smoother, more refined version of the Top Pros. Has a little bit more, mid-bass. It's a bit fuller in the vocals and the low end. Overall, tonality wise, it is more enjoyable and more natural to me while giving you enough details. Pretty smooth, and overall it's just a very solid all-rounder set. Then moving on to the next budget IEM, we have the 7Hz CRINACLE 02s. These are a bassy all-rounder kind of sound. Here we're looking for something that is a little bit more low in emphasis but still well balanced everywhere else. I would personally skip a lot of the IEMs up until the SIMGOT EW300. These are just a bigger difference in the technical performance while being a bassy all-rounder with the tuning options, the nozzles, and you get a better musical playback. Like, you could go for the cheaper stuff, but not a huge difference in my opinion, and I'll just save up for the EW300. Then after the EW300, my rec here would be the CCA Hydros. These have a very sub-bassy, like these 02s. They have the tuning switches. They're pretty good value. You can find these for less than $100, and overall the bass sector is very good while giving you a solid performance and technicalities to back it up, and they just do the job very good for what we're looking for. Then after the Hydros, I will go right to the ZGAT Odysseys. Very good sub-bass focus set. The decay is just enough, but you still get the texture. It scales great as well, and you can find these for less than $200 on sale while being more musical, more unique in the overall playback as a more dynamic all-rounder like scaling set. Now if you're looking for something more at mid-volume, my right here would be the Zen's T Pros. These are a little bit thicker in the overall playback, a bit warmer than the Odysseys. The vocals are also a little bit sharper, the imaging slightly sharper overall, and this would be a good side grade to the Odysseys for those who want a little bit more forward in the vocals and they don't listen as loud as the Odysseys. T Pros are still pretty solid. Another side grade here would be the Theaudio Hype 4s, also a bassy all-rounder kind of set, more balanced, also a mid-volume set, similar to the T Pros but just smoother, less I guess like edgy in the overall playback, and a little bit more balanced, but still giving you that great sub-bass and mid-bass texture. Then after those, I will skip everything and jump right to the Theaudio Origins. I think if you're looking for like just good bass texture, these probably the best under $1,000. I would even take these over the Monarch Mark 4s when it comes to the bass texture alone. The bone conduction driver, very bouncy. You get the tactilities. The imaging is very good as well. Extension, balance. It's basically a very well balanced sub bass focus kind of IEM, and I would definitely recommend this. Then past $1,000, there are some options like the Empire Years Raven, fat free Grand Maestros, but those are just very expensive, like over 3K I think, and in my opinion not worth it unless you have just excess money to spend. You want quote unquote the best. Like the origin is very close. Next, moving up to the next budget IEM, we have the SIMGOT EW200. This has a slightly bright, like sharper kind of playback, very good technical performance for the price. And here we're just looking for something that is slightly bright leaning, but still well balanced overall. It's not a treble headset, but you do get a little bit more of a sparkle to the sound. I would skip everything and jump right to the SIMGOT EA500LM or the EM6Ls. These just do the bright all-rounder kind of sound very good. They are the direct upgrade to the EW200s. Then after those, I would skip the $100 to $150 price range and jump right to the KBEAR Septet. This is a slightly airy, sparkly, slightly treble, no, I wouldn't say treble head, but it is bright leaning, technical, but you still get the body and fullness in the overall sound. It is a very unique kind of sound. I would definitely recommend trying the Septet out because it is very different from the other stuff. Then after the Septet, I would go for the Top Pros. These are more sparkly, less airy, I guess. It's a little bit sharper in the imaging, cleaner, but it is still slightly bright and very clear in the overall sound. It's just a very solid all-rounder, good value. It's very popular for a reason. And lastly, over $1,000, I would go for the Symphonium Crimson. These are a slight V-shaped kind of sound, very engaging, slightly energetic. In the treble, you get the OCD details, you get the micro nuances, layering, technical performance, very good. If you're looking for something brighter and very technical like the EW200, this would be like the end game to that. For our next budget IEM, we have the TANGZU WANER Studio, which is a more neutral and vocal kind of set. It doesn't have the sub bass boost like the WANER 2. So here we're looking for something that is just, neutral and vocal centric. I would skip all the other price brackets and jump right to the TANCHJIM for you and the SIMGOT chinos. You can get the 4Us for around $55. You can get the chinos on sale for around 60 to 70 bucks. Main difference is that the chino doesn't have the vocal gain. It's literally like a straight line, very good in the separation, detail, just a very good neutral set, whereas the 4U has obviously more vocal gain. The vocals pop out more, still getting that neutral and smooth playback, but just more vocal centric. Then after those, I would jump right to the KBEAR's Aether if you want something that is balanced, clean, less vocal centric. It does have the upper mids cut, but still very good in the separation, the layering. Overall playback is just balanced, clean, slightly airy in the overall sound, and a very good value. You can get these for less than $150 on sale. The Aether also replaces the Afua 5+2 for me because it's basically a cheaper and airier version of the 5+2 without the treble sizzle and very similar technical performance. Now as for vocals, I would jump right to the Volume S, the Arcanus, and the Condensa 4 because you could go for the Daybreak and the P50s, but in my opinion, it's not a huge difference versus the TANCHJIM for you. It's slightly better vocal wise. The bigger difference would be the Volume S, the Cat 4 if you want something more, airy, female centric. Volume S for male vocals. You also got the SIMGOT Arcanus if you want better scaling, a little bit more unique in the sound. The treble goosebumps, very musical. It takes you on a journey with the vocals. Very clean kind of listen versus the other two. But aside from that, I would probably just skip everything and then just wait till the Xuanwu Gate if you're looking for a more neutral straight line kind of set, which is around $500 $600. I would just get these over the Perform 8 because the difference isn't huge in the Perform 8 versus the chinos, whereas the Xuanwu Gate, you do get the ESTs, you get a better tune kind of sound, more detail, and overall the overall packaging is also just better as well. So if you're looking for something more straight neutral, Xuanwu Gate would be my pick. Then similarly, at around $500, you can get the Software's RS5 on sale or the original Oracles, a very good, clean, sweet, balanced, all-rounder vocal set. And then the RS5 is something more vocal centric, more forward, powerful, extended, and more in your face versus the laid back and smoother playback of the Oracles. Both of these are still very good for vocals, and this would be the next step up from the Volume S and the Cat 4. Then lastly, at $1,000, my pick here would be the Lecture Mystic 8. This is more of a female vocal centric set. It is very neutral, it's very clean, but the female vocals get highlighted just enough because of the slight emphasis in the treble region. Very airy, sparkly, well extended, but also smooth and refined and very detailed. This is basically a better version of the Divas in my opinion, and it's currently one of the best female vocals you can get under $2,000. Moving on to our next budget IEM, we have the QKZ HBB. Here we're looking for something that's warm but still bassy but still smooth at the same time. It's gonna be less dynamic and in your face like the BASSY all-rounder. This is going to be smoother, a little bit more laid back and warm. My rec here for the next upgrade would be the Confined Clean. These are just a very good solid set, warm but still pretty balanced at the same time, but not overly bassy, smooth in the extension. And overall, for like $40, $35, these are a pretty no-brainer. Then after the clean, we have two options here. If you listen at a louder volume, I would actually recommend the Truth to Your Peers. Now, some people found these to be a bit too warm, a bit like, you know, low res at mid volume, which I do agree, they're not the best at mid to lower volumes, but give these more scaling, give these enough volume, they open up and it becomes a pretty relaxing, smooth, but still a very warm, well-balanced kind of sound. It is pretty enjoyable if you're looking for that, but at mid-volume I would say probably not. But speaking of mid-volume, here my pick would be the KBEAR's Aeroso. This is basically a slightly airier and detailed version of the SIMGOT EW300, but you get the warmness, you get the detail, but it's just a little bit smoother. And overall, if you're looking for something warm and, you know, airy, this would fit the bill pretty well. Another alternative here would be the Full Explorer if you listen loud as well. This is gonna be more sub-bass focused. It's not gonna be as well balanced as the Pure or the Aerosos, but if you want more sub-bass and you listen loud, these would work. Then after those, I would skip the $200 and $300 price range and jump right to the Zigat Lunas at around $400. This is the definition of a well-tuned, smooth, warm, but still airy kind of playback. This is my pick for rock, hip-hop, R&B, metal, just fits that genre of music very well. And this is like a cleaner version of the Symphonium meters, which is also a recommendation if you want something even warmer than the Lunas, but you still get the air as well, but it's just slightly less technical than the Lunas, but you do get a warmer sound. So depending on what you're looking for, both the Lunas and the meters would be pretty good for that. Then lastly, at around $1,000, I would go for the Monarch Mark IVs in the warm bass switch. This is basically a slightly more technical version of the Lunas and the meters. I wouldn't say it's 3 times better than the Lunas. Basically, if you have $1,000 to spend, you can go for the Monarchs. If you don't, you can stick with the Lunas or the meters. I think both of those are still fantastic sets for the price and the much better value as well, considering the diminishing returns. Now, as for our next budget IEM, we have the KBEAR ROSEFINCH, and here we are basically looking for a bass head sound signature. And right away, I would jump right to the 7Hz legatos because there's not really an IEM that's like bass head. There is some bassy IEMs, but not bass head levels like the legatos. And then after the legatos, it would be the Deuce at around 260. The Deuce does the sub bass focus subwoofer sound very well, smooth. You know, you can crank them up pretty well. And overall, it's just a decent set aside from the QC and customer service shenanigan from Fat Freak. Just buy it from Linso or something and you're gonna be fine. But aside from that, a solid bass head set. Another option here, if you listen at a higher volume, would be the HBB Arcadias. At mid volume, I wouldn't say this is a bass head kind of set. It is very warm at mid volume, but if you scale these up, the bass becomes very like prominent, and you can crank these up quite a bit because it is darker in the overall sound, and you also have a lot of low end and thicker. So these are better for a high volume set. Then after those, under $500, I would go for the Punch Audio Martellos or the KBEAR's HBB Punch. Both of these are pretty similar. The Punch is smoother, a little bit more mid-bass centric, whereas the Martello is slightly more V-shaped, sharper, a little bit more sub-bass focus. Not a huge difference aside from the ESTs and the price, but it is like $100 difference, so depending on how much money you have, both of these would work very well. And then past 500, I don't really recommend any of the IEM because I guess you could go for the Symphonium Titans, I guess you could go for the Grand Maestros, but huge diminishing returns, and I think the HBB Punch and the Martellos are more than enough. Then finally, we have the TANCHJIM Ultima and the Bunny DSP/3.5. Here we are looking for something that is very good in value, very technical, and just a good all-rounder overall. I would skip most of the IEMs up until the RDT10s and the SIMGOT EW300 because there's not much of a difference in the technical performance versus some even $35 versus the Bunnies. They're just very good in the value. So you already have a very good baseline. You're looking for something that could give you a bigger difference in performance, technicalities. For example, if you want very technical for the price, that would be the RDT10s. And then if you want more variety in the sound, the EW300 does that very well, but still being a noticeable upgrade in the overall detail retrieval. So those two are both pretty good for the value. EW300, you can find these for $60 on sale. RDT10s, obviously, value king for a while, $50. sometimes even like 40, 45. Then after those, I would jump right to the SIMGOT SuperMix 4. This is pretty self-explanatory, very technical for the price, punches way above its price range at around like 300 bucks. Very good technicalities and a decent all-rounder as well. It could be a bit shouty depending on if you like Harman 2019 or not, but if we're talking about value and performance, these are hard to beat. Then after the SuperMix 4, I would jump right to the Top Pros. You're gonna see a bigger difference here versus some of the $300, $400 IEMs like the Dusk, like the Hype 4s. Not a huge performance boost versus the SuperMix 4, whereas the Top Pros punches above its price like the SuperMix 4, and you'll see a bigger difference going to the Top Pros, even though the difference isn't huge, but you see a more noticeable than like the Dusk, for example. I would also go for the IO Volair if you want something smoother. You got the ESTs, very good for the value. You get 4 ESTs, very great packaging, accessories, the build, the cable, the overall just presentation is great, and then the overall sound is natural, smooth, and pretty detailed as well, like the Top Pros. So either one of those are going to be very solid. Another option here would be the The Audio Oracle Mark 3s. These have the best bass texture out of the 3. They are just more sub-bass focused, more low-end focused, and you get more rumble and more impact to the slam versus the other 2. But it's not as smooth as the Volair, and it's not as good in value as the Top Pros. So it's kind of a trade-off depending on if you prioritize bass or not. These do still have VSTs, so in terms of value, it's still pretty decent. Now, as for an honorable mention, I would give this to the Mega 5 EST7, mainly because the recent unit I got is a lot different from the first 2, which is a bit dead, a bit limp in the low end, a bit too smoothed out, whereas the most recent unit, pretty punchy in the bass, but the treble is still pretty smooth. You still get the ESTs. In terms of just like unit variants, I don't know which unit you're gonna get, so because of that, I'm going to say this is going to be an honorable mention. Then lastly, over $1,000, my pick here for a good value technical all-rounder would obviously be number 1, the The Audio Mark 4s. Pretty self-explanatory, smooth, detailed, you know, you get the tuning switches, well balanced, but you also get the warm sound as well. So just a great overall package aside from the shitty case. Another option here would be the Dunu Glaciers. This is more dynamic. It's a little bit more forward in the vocals, a bit more contrasty. You get more sub bass. Overall sound feels a little bit more V-shaped versus the Monarch Mark 4s. Not as smooth and versatile as the Monarch Mark 4s, but if you want something that's more vocal centric but still all-rounded, these are pretty solid as well. But aside from that, that is pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys found this review and guide to be helpful. If you have any of those beginner budget IEMs, let me know what upgrade you end up getting and what upgrade you already got, if you already, got the upgrade. Aside from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see everyone in the next one.
Shout out to Dom Q, Rorix Cat, Mystic Spoon Attack, B Yorak, Discal Scaldus, Walker Standard, Patrick, User, Contain Guava Juice Games, Oh Really, Mr. Gorillas, Polly J, Giseng Young, Christopher Jackson, Henry Claudia, Son of a Horse, 777ZK, Wizard, Obi, Trouble Extended, Frickalicious, Ricardo, Tapis R, Choco Norris, Shemp Backlay, FKSRG, Cousin Fat, Julius, Dead Riddle, Bilha, Ardmore, Nico, Parham, Nicholas M, Addy, Michael, Vinicius, Torcog, LL here, Andy, Trackstar, Sammy, Fun Times, Sherjip, Someone Help Me, Ryan, Shuri, Sweet Rain, Raphael, I'm J-Rack, Ori, June, Hakase, Over Analog, Lama, Cell, Emil, and Sayaki. Thank you guys so much for the support.